Simon O'Connor.
I want to acknowledge the last speaker. I think it's actually an implicit sign of how good the health system is that she expects to be alive, fit and healthy in the Minister in at least 20 years' time. I think that is fantastic. It's also clearly a night of celebration, as has been seen or visualised in the House. But I am very pleased that we are now at this third reading of the Health Protection Amendment Bill. Can I thank the Minister and his team for bringing the bill to the House, and to thank the officials who had quite assiduously helped us through this bill. I'm going to touch on the two main themes within it. There's often a lot of talk around the sunbeds, Mr. Speaker, but I'll spend most of my time talking on the contact tracing side of it, but to thank again the officials for their work and understanding, to thank the Select Committee members from all sides. Other members have said it in this stage of the reading and in other parts. It's a very collegial committee. We work very hard together to try and bring, I think, the best results possible. We don't always see eye to eye, and the sunbed provisions in this bill are an example of that, but that doesn't prevent us working ahead. Look, the context of this bill is a reaction, if you will, to a lack around how we trace infectious diseases in this country. If I go back, I'm pretty sure I would have mentioned it in my first reading many months ago. The system before this bill really just puts a moral compunction on a New Zealander to report an infectious disease, and it didn't really give any powers to medical practitioners to ensure someone notifies their disease. In other words, if someone was found to have something like gonorrhea, for example, a doctor couldn't force them to undertake, couldn't force the person to have that effectively registered or noted. And, you know, one of the things we have to acknowledge quite importantly is that even though we are individuals, we live in a society, and when it comes to things like infectious diseases, society as a whole, the community needs to know. So this bill puts in place what we term contact tracing, and it basically puts in a series of steps, Mr. Speaker, to allow medical professionals to ensure that if someone has an infectious disease, that it is notified and that they are effectively managed, contained, assisted as best they can. So again, the moral side is now replaced by a series of steps and structures to make sure not only is that person well cared for and looked after, but also that the community itself is protected. It's bringing together a range of new the conditions themselves are not new, but it's bringing a number of other notifiable diseases into this category, the likes of gonorrhea, syphilis and HIV, three that come to mind, words that you note normally have me speaking about in public, but they come under the bill. Another element is actually around tuberculosis or TB, that up to this bill has been dealt with as a separate piece of legislation. This Health Protection Amendment Bill effectively ends the Tuberculosis Act and brings tuberculosis in as a notifiable disease. While I think we're quite well on top of it, it's something that we have to look upon quite carefully, particularly for people coming from overseas. Members on the committee in particular will remember there was a lot of discussion about hepatitis C. In fact, quite a good number of submitters that came and spoke. Look, Hep C was not put at the top level of a notifiable disease for a variety of reasons, but particularly to those submitters, some of whom I know are watching. I hope and trust are very pleased with the government's announcement and extra funding to Pharmac, which is allowing, I believe, at least 2 drugs now that directly affect hepatitis C in New Zealand, in fact moving from a management to a curative model. So I think that's quite exciting. Within the whole contact trace, I think it's really important to stress, Mr. Speaker, the importance of privacy. We spent a lot of time as a committee focused on the importance of privacy, but we also heard from a number of epidemiologists and those working in public health that there are elements we need to know about New Zealanders who have infectious diseases, and that includes the NHI, or the National Health Index number. We've accepted that, and the committee amended that into its report, and pleased to see it remain in the bill. Look, I just want to finish around the whole sunbeds discussion. I am very comfortable as chair where we have landed with this bill. I think it protects the rights, or allows New Zealanders who wish to use sunbeds to continue doing so if they're over 18 years of age. We're not here to, if you will, mollycoddle every person's decision, but I think we've also made a very clear statement in a variety of ways that sunbeds are not healthy at all. I've said many times on the record that the science is very, very clear that the use of any sort of ultraviolet generating machine, such as a solaria or sunbed, enormously increases the risk of melanoma, but I think really importantly, enormously increases the risk of non-melanoma skin cancers, which are in fact far more prevalent in this country. So I certainly encourage New Zealanders to enjoy the sun responsibly and not necessarily use a sunbed, but ultimately the choice is theirs, is the choice of mine to do what I want in life here. So I think we have a good balance, and I would like to commend this bill in its third reading to the House.
Excellent speech. Porter Williams.